What made you decide to run?
What made me decide to run is I love Amarillo. It's a great city. I don't feel that it's reached its full potential as far as where it could be. We have a lot of neighborhoods that are falling apart. Our current council, they've done a good job. You know, I can't say they've done a bad job, but I don't think that they have a pulse of the entire city. And I think that I can offer that somewhere where I can be in touch with the entire community and not just a certain portion of it.
How do you propose to, that's a big job, to be in touch with the entire community. How do you plan to be more open and public?
It's hard. You know, not everybody is always going to agree with everything that I believe and that my fellow council members believe, and us council members may not even feel the same way about things, and that's not a bad thing. I think, you know, listening to people is really important, and that's where the current council, I feel, has fallen short. They don't listen to people enough, and I would like to hold town hall meetings and really get out in the community and talk to people. That's pretty much what I've been doing through my campaign, is just talking to people, kind of feeling what they feel and what they feel they want fixed with the city.
Okay. What do you bring to the job personally that would make you a better choice than your opponents?
Well, I think what differentiates me from my opponents is that I am not made of money. I have been in the middle income bracket my entire life. I work hard. I go to work every day. I raise children. You know, not to say that they didn't, but you know, I am the general person out there in the community, and I think that just having that ability to listen and understand what everyday people go through with bills and job losses and their taxes increasing. I think that I can connect with them in that way.
Okay. What would be the first initiatives that you would pursue?
The first thing that I would like to do is really take a look at where we're spending our money. I want to do a very thorough check into where our money has gone and where it's projected to go into the future, so that we can better target money into areas that need it the most. I really want to make sure that some of our neighborhoods that are just falling apart, we get rid of vacant houses, you know, try and get the crime rates down in those areas, just make it better as a whole.
And have you had an opportunity to look at like the city budget or anything like that?
I've taken a few looks at it. You know, what's made public isn't enough to really see what's being spent, you know, where, and that's really where I want to go with it, is the details of what's being spent. You know, we can say this much has been spent on law enforcement, but where is it being spent and how is it effective?
It's a public record, you know, you can request that.
You can. The everyday person can go to City Hall and request it and pay for all the pages, and it can be expensive because I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of documents, so yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about your social media and your campaign page. I noticed on there in March, earlier this month, you posted or shared a meme on social media that you were not the originator of it. It had been shared, or
Correct.
At least I don't know that you're originator. I don't know who originated it, but that it criticizes the mayor. It carried some true claims. It also carried some untrue claims. For example, trash carts and things like that can be laid at this council's feet, but drainage fees and plans for paid parking downtown originated with previous councils. And rather than reducing the police budget, this council refunded 11 police officers, 11 positions that had previously gone unfilled, and added 5 new. So I guess as a candidate, I want to ask you, what do you believe your responsibility is to provide accurate information to voters? I
think it's very important to provide accurate information to voters. And I think after I shared that, I'm not one to take stuff down after I share it. I stand by what I put out there. I take responsibility for it. And I think I had a conversation with someone underneath that comment where I said that that portion may be inaccurate. Because I do remember reading about the increases that they've given to the police department. So I didn't think that there were cuts. And I've heard it both ways. Again, I haven't looked that deeply into the budget to see, what was spent. So really going off of this person said this person said that. But if I was wrong, I will admit I was wrong.
And the reason I say that is I believe the wordage is that the council refunded positions that had gone unfilled. So part of it was bringing the budget back to whole as far as officer positions, but the other part was adding 5 new. So
yeah.
That leads me to your thoughts on public safety and what would you do there?
So I am actually, by education, majored in criminology in college, and so I have a really deep understanding into other ways that we can fix public safety without spending more money, or I should say investing more money into our police department. We have one of the best police departments that I've seen. I've lived in New Mexico and Arizona. And even those bigger departments don't match what we have here. I work with the CIT officers quite a bit in my position.
What is your position?
I am a mental health case manager.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of work with the CIT officers, and they're just great. Any officer that I've ever dealt with in the city has been awesome.
You were recently doing a ride-around.
I did.
Ride-along with
did do a ride-around. One of our programs is short-staffed, and so once a week I'll be riding around with officers, mostly in a mental health capacity. I won't be doing anything law enforcement-wise, but it's still an important part of what the police department does. Is
that one of the things that you would advocate to expand or look at how it can be better?
Absolutely. We do, as a state even, our mental health services are awesome. And obviously there's always room to grow. So, adding more CIT officers would help. I don't know, what's in the budget for that, but I think that it would, anything that we can add to fixing our issues will be great.
What are your thoughts on single-member districts?
I am for single-member districts. I think that, I know there's some negative to it. I think the city is at a size now that we need people representing, every area of town. We do have areas that our current council, they know of those areas. They know what's going on there. And I don't want to say that they're not sensitive to the issues that are faced in those areas, but there isn't anybody that's living in those areas to represent them.
It's a measure that has failed twice before in previous elections, so what would you do to educate voters on?
I think just educating them, getting the word out there and explaining what the benefits to it are, and as well as explaining what the negatives to it are, because there are negatives. If there weren't, it would have been done years ago. But I think the benefit to the voters far outweighs those negatives. And part of the issue is the people that should be voting for it aren't voting. And that's something that we need to do, is get them out to vote, get them more energized and involved in their community. I think a lot of people feel disenfranchised because they don't feel like their voice makes a difference.
Some have claimed the mayor and city council have paid attention to some areas at a detriment to others. Where would those areas be, and what would you do differently? How would you fund those things?
So I feel like the north side of town has been ignored a lot. I live on the north side of town. I drive by the vacant houses and drive on the bumpy roads and, you know, potholes. It's not fun, and I don't feel like we've increased taxes for everybody, but we spend all that money, or I shouldn't say all of it, but we spend a lot of that money on one side of town, and we kind of leave the other side drowning. Now, I know there's initiatives for certain neighborhoods that we've put into place, and that's a positive step, but I don't feel like it's enough.
Have you looked at those at the North Heights and Barrio neighborhood plans?
Yes, I've been to both of those meetings. I know the San Jacinto just kicked off. I haven't been to that meeting yet, but you know, again, it's positive. There's money flowing in that direction. That's good. I think we can do more.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the closing of Thompson Park Pool, and where would you find funding to keep it open or replace it?
Well, I know right now they're looking at that and possibly opening maybe 1 or 2 additional pools rather than reopening Thompson Park, which again, that's a positive thing. That's something that our council is looking at now. I think it's a travesty. You know, it's something that I don't think enough money was ever put into maintaining our parks, and that just shows that we didn't plan ahead. And you know, that may not be this council. That may have been 3 councils ago that just didn't pay attention. I know they cut funding to our Parks and Recreation a few councils ago, and that kind of is what happens when you do that, and things start falling apart, and then you have to pay to fix them. So
very true. We
got to get back to funding things appropriately so that they are well maintained. And again, I know the current council is working on that. So.
The Texas legislature is considering enacting a property tax cap on local governments. It would require voter approval for a tax rate increases of 2.5% or more. What is your position on that, and how would that impact city needs?
I am for that legislation. I think that we continue to tax our populations, and then it gets so high that they just don't want to live here anymore. And if we're telling them we're going to tax them and this is what we're going to do with that money, and being transparent about it, and then giving them the opportunity to vote if they want that or not, just like we do with bonds now, I think that's a good thing. They can have more of a say in where their money is going and whether they want to pay more for those programs and such.
Do you believe more votes should be held about big expenditures, or?
I do.
How would you go about that? Because the city, the councils only, cities, local governments only have 2 uniform election days a year.
If we have to do special elections for that, then we have to do special elections. But I mean, I think that if we schedule those accordingly, that we can we can move along. We have the means of getting people out to vote and getting them the information, so why not just do it?
Okay. The current council drew some criticism for the way it handled a homeless camp on the edge of downtown, northern edge. It has since launched a Housing First pilot program, but there's another camp that appears to have set up across the street. So what are your thoughts on how to handle those situations?
Well, I was just having a discussion about this with my boss today, and you know, we both kind of see it differently. She's been more involved with the homeless community than I have. You know, a lot of the issue is we want to help our homeless that are residents of Amarillo. We have a lot of homeless people that come in from other areas because we offer such great services to our homeless people. So we are doing things the right way. Part of the camp that was taken down last time was a lot of people that were coming in from other areas, and there was drugs going on out there. There was trafficking going on there, sex trafficking. And that's absolutely something that we want to avoid. You know, there's good sides to it and there's bad sides to it. And the city did what they thought was necessary. I don't agree with the way they handled it 100%, but I understand why they did. Moving forward, the housing program that we've started that's a great start. Again, we're moving in the right direction, and so we just need to find a way to help our residents, the ones that are homeless, and obviously the ones that aren't as well. But just maybe trying to get people out of the community that aren't our regular community members.
Okay. What are your thoughts, or where do you stand on tax abatements and other incentive packages for prospective new businesses? And also, are the incentives for a potential Texas Tech University school worth the cost?
I think that tax incentives are a positive thing. At the same time, I don't think we should always give away the farm. We should be doing what we can to bring in new businesses. If that means a little bit of a tax incentive, we'll bring them in. I think that's great. I think we should offer it to our current businesses as well. And when we give money to a new business that's coming in, that's going to take business away from a current established business here in Amarillo, that's not a positive thing. So we need to balance that out. I think offering incentives in certain areas that we want to grow and make better is the direction that we should go.
Does that include the veterinary school for Texas Tech?
The veterinary tech school is definitely a good thing. Again, I don't know how many veterinarians we're going to employ here in Amarillo, and I see that as one of our issues, is we have a lot of young people getting through school and then they leave, and so we're not building our community. So while it is a good thing, I think we need to focus on more tech type jobs and more manufacturing type jobs here in Amarillo.
Okay. What are your thoughts about the problematic rollout of the utility billing system?
Well, I haven't paid my water bill in probably about a month and a half because I haven't seen a bill. Again, it's a good thing to have a new system. That just means we're moving forward. Maybe the planning wasn't great, but it will even out. That's probably one of the least of my worries right now. Going forward, if we do a change like that, obviously we'll want someone to make sure that the rollout's going to be smoother.
Okay. Why were you for or against the multi-purpose event venue? And if you're elected, how will you work to make sure the city gets what it paid for in terms of sales tax revenue increases and things like that?
So I think I've done a lot of research into the MPEV, and it's not a bad thing. I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. I'll probably go to some games this year. It's not a bad thing. Again, the problem is that we didn't do our research, and it almost feels like we just threw it together, paid for it, and that was it. I looked at other stadiums roughly around the same size, and actually did a direct comparison with the stadium in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because that's where I'm from. It seemed familiar to me. We paid about $13 million more to build the stadium. The stadium in Albuquerque has about double as many seats, and the contract that we signed with the team seems to have undercut us as a city. We're getting $400,000 a year for renting the stadium. We get no money from any other revenues in the stadium, not from ticket sales, not from concessions. And of that 400,000 that we're getting every year, 225,000 of that is going back to maintenance. So really, we're only getting $175,000, where the stadium in Albuquerque, Isotope Stadium, they paid their stadium off in 15 years just from the money that they're getting in rent and from ticket sales. So I think we could have done a better job of positioning ourselves to at least make more money and maybe spend less on the stadium.
How long ago was Albuquerque's built?
Albuquerque's was built in 2003, but the $32 million that they paid is in 2018 dollars.
Okay.
So yeah, I did that comparison with current money. I think they paid 25 at the time.
Okay. Oh, can't flip a page. Excuse me. What improvements should be made at the Civic Center, and how would you pay for those?
The Civic Center does need to be renovated. I think we need it to be larger, get some more seats in there possibly. I'm not sure what the seating is right now, but just something to offer to people that are coming into town. You know, we can't have huge conventions here because we don't have the facilities big enough for them. And how are we going to draw people into town? You know, I hate to compare Amarillo to Las Vegas, but you know, you look at how many hundreds of thousands of people go there every year for conventions. And obviously we're not going to meet that here, but if we make better opportunities for conventions and we can start offering those to people, and we can get more people in and increase the hot funds, and it would just be good for the city altogether. Local businesses would make more money.
Have you looked at the Civic Center plans that they've begun? I think they're on their third phase of planning on that.
I have not yet.
Okay. And the current mayor and council have taken heat for moving council meetings and sessions for public comment. How would you address this issue?
Well, we need to move meetings and public comment to a time where more people are available to come. I can't even make it to the meetings right now because of my schedule. And, you know, again, I think holding occasional town hall meetings, you know, either as a council or separately, just to hear people. And that's something that we need to do more effectively, because these are our residents and they're going to tell us what they want and what they don't want. And we can avoid these backlashes if we are at least listening, acknowledging. We may not do what they want every single time, but at least we know what they want. They know that we know what they want, and we can move forward from there.
How do you pay for new growth while still maintaining existing infrastructure? And should developers pay more of the cost for that growth?
I think that developers should pay a little bit more of the cost for the growth. You know, we have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt. We have a lot of roads that are not in good shape, and it's going to take time to fix all that, and it's going to take money to fix all that. But if we balance it out correctly, we can do it. We can grow and we can get the city back to where it should be.